Hey guys, what's up? Nick Techno here, and today we're going to be going over what my personal favorite foldable device of 2024 is, and that is the OnePlus Open. So let's get right into it. First thing I want to get out on the table, I know some people right out the rip are going to probably jump into the comments and go, well, this is the only foldable device this guy's ever purchased, so obviously he's got a purchase bias, and he's going to say this is the best foldable on the market. I'm here to stop you immediately and say I do have the Z Fold 6, and I also was using the Google Pixel Fold 2. And I was using that for a solid 2.5 weeks. I made a couple videos on it. If you haven't seen them on the channel, go check them out. But it's not here because I did return it. I was gonna say I sold it, but no, I returned it to Google in order to pick up the OnePlus Open. So you might be wondering, what's the reason you returned the Pixel Fold and got the OnePlus Open in its place? I actually made an entire video talking about the 5 major issues I had with the Pixel Fold 2, and I'll have a link to that in the description below if you want to go check it out, because I'm not going to go over all that here. But let's just say that the OnePlus Open essentially solved all those issues I had with the Pixel, and this is easily becoming my favorite phone of all time, let alone my favorite just folding device in general. So there are some quirks with it though. I'm going to be honest with you guys, this is not a perfect phone. And I'm making this video essentially to talk about my favorite features of the OnePlus Open and what I really hope they put into the drawing board for the OnePlus Open 2 that's coming next year. They have already announced this, that it will be coming next year, and there's been leaks and all that stuff, but they have not announced anything in the sort of what we're supposed to see or what's going to be coming. So I'm just crossing my fingers that we're going to see some new and improved features and settings and stuff like that, and all the issues from this phone are going to be ironed out in the next iteration. That being said, let's go over the bad or the things that I'm just not a huge fan of with the OnePlus Open. The first thing is the always-on display. So the always-on display has a couple issues I have with this device to the point of me not even using it. And I've used always-on displays for years at this point, so it's been very interesting kind of going away from that after having this phone for about 2 weeks now. It's been weird not having an always-on display, but I've gotten used to it. Now, what's the reason for why I'm not using it? So the biggest thing is, for some reason, the always-on display on the OnePlus Open only has one version of brightness. It doesn't use auto brightness at all. So if you're in a very dark lit room, especially if you use your phone like most people do on your nightstand to charge overnight, it lights up your room so brightly that you have to turn it off. It's just super annoying. That's one big issue. Another issue is that it moves, so it's kind of distracting. So if I have it sitting on my desk while I'm working, I notice that the clock will start moving ever so slightly. It's not immediate. It takes every 5 minutes, but eventually it'll move all the way down the phone and then go back to the top, and it keeps doing that over and over. I looked this up, and I kind of was assuming it had something to do with to not have burn-in on the display, and I was correct. It is a feature. It's not a bug. It's meant to reduce the chance of allowing some type of burn-in with the display. But here's the thing. Z Fold 6, any Samsung device, any other real manufacturer on the market, Google itself, they all have always-on displays, and not one of them have the quote-unquote feature of it moving down the display over time to stop burn-in. And I think that's because it doesn't need to happen. And maybe that also relates to the brightness situation. Maybe it's because they, for some reason, have not figured out how to make the always-on display less bright, and that's why they want to just reduce the chance of it burning in, because with other devices, it's a lot dimmer. So if I was to give you an example, so if I went into the settings here and turn on the always-on display on my Samsung, all right, so I turn on the always-on display on my Samsung Galaxy, and as you can see, it's very bright right now because of the studio lights I have on. So it's using the sensor up top here to look at my environment and make sure this is bright enough to see. But I believe if I cover this up, it's gonna be hard to get this on camera. You see how it dimmed down? Because it knows that I'm now in a darker environment. So this has auto brightness. This does not. So you might even notice it's actually dimmer right now than the Samsung, because it should technically be brighter depending on my lighting situation. So even if I was to cover the top, it's not going to get technically dimmer, but what it does is it shuts off the display thinking you're putting it in your pocket. So it does save battery life in that situation, but it's still very annoying that it doesn't actually dim the brightness anymore when you want to have it at your nightstand, or if you're in a darker environment and you need your screen to be a lot darker. So as you can see, it dims it for a slight second, then it just turns off. So yeah, not having auto brightness for the always on display is a very interesting decision. I don't know if it's a lack of hardware situation or if it's the screen quality. I don't know. It's just super weird. So I hope in the next iteration of the OnePlus Open, they'll be able to change this to make it work just like other devices in the market, so I can turn back on always on display and actually enjoy using it. Because yeah, it's weird. Just over time, you'll see it start moving down. And I don't like that. So hopefully that will change. And one more thing I should add to that always on display thing is I hope for the future, this is a nitpick, but I really hope they add this feature. So on my Samsung, normally the way I have it turned on is to only show the always on display when you get a notification. It's super helpful, so it doesn't hurt your battery nearly as much. So your screen will be black. Normally it'll just be dark. You won't see anything. But then all of a sudden it'll light up like this when you get a notification, and it will stay on until you double tap to open to see what's going on. I love that. Super convenient. I wish every phone had that, but only Samsung seems to be the one doing that feature. And again, I just really hope they bring that to the OnePlus Open too. Next is a software thing that I do think can be fixed. I just want an option for this. I've heard from some people they like this ability, they like this choice, I suppose, but I am 100% against it. I have a little bit larger hands than most people, so when I use the gesture system, I swipe up pretty high with my thumb. Most people have not had this issue, at least from what I've seen in the subreddit. So, take this with a grain of salt. This is nitpicking, but there's a feature that they implemented where when you're in an app, such as like YouTube or whatever, and you want to go back to the home screen or swipe to a different app, going up with your gesture automatically creates a floating window if you go too high up. So you can see it activates right about there. So that's not even halfway up the phone. And for someone with bigger thumbs, bigger hands like me, this happens all the time by accident. So really quick as a demo, I'm going to show you how easy it is for this to happen. See, like it just turns into a floating window. And then every time I have to come in here, bring it back, and then go slow. And then there we go. Now I can go back to the home screen. It's a small annoyance. And I've gotten used to it. I've gotten better about not swiping up so high to have that not triggered by accident. But it is something that is noticeable that can become a nuisance. And it is, I guess, a problem. I just wish it was a way we could turn that off. Because from what I could see, there is no way to turn that feature off. So, minor annoyance, but I did want to bring that up. Next, and this is something that a lot of people have complained about on the OnePlus Open, it's not just me, but you cannot change the grid size of your home screen. This is just super weird to me, why for some reason OnePlus does not want to give anybody the functionality to change the grid size. And what that means is you can only have the 4 in a row apps on one page. So you can only have a max of 4, where other phone manufacturers like Samsung, even on this super skinny display, I can have 5 or more. It's just ridiculous that you can only do 4. And I don't like how big they look. The spaces are just way too grand. I would love to have 5 at least. That's the way I've always set up my phones on Samsung. So it's just really weird that you can only do a grid size of 4x4. And yeah, I hope on the OnePlus 2, they'll update that. I don't know if they will, but I really hope that will be fixed. And the other thing too is I just would love to see a feature where we could have a separate home screen on the front display versus when you open the phone. So for instance, on Samsung, I have my screen set up on the outer display, and I have a different wallpaper and a different setup when I open the phone. I just thought that's so convenient. I love that feature, and it sucks that you have to have the same inner display as your outer display, and it just kind of looks like 2 separate windows now, like 2 phones smushed together, if you will. And I'm not a fan of that at all. I really hope they change that. This one is another thing with the new Google Android 15, I should say, is that there's no circle to search. Really big bummer. I use it all the time on Samsung devices and on my Google Pixel, and I don't have that here anymore. It's kind of a bummer. They have talked about they are bringing it, though, to the OnePlus, so I know that will be here soon. And maybe they're waiting for it to launch with the OnePlus Open 2. I don't know. But I just really would love to see that appear here because it does not work on this device. This is kind of a weird one. So the refresh rate, there's different options for this. So this is a 120 hertz display. And if you're like me, I love having the most fluid experience whenever I can. So putting it at the highest it can go to always have the fastest refresh rate, I think is honestly the best way to go. But obviously you are going to run into situations where it's going to eat up more battery when you always have it on high. So most people are probably going to leave it on auto select, which is supposed to have like an optimal setting or an algorithm that knows when to switch it to a lower hertz to not eat up as much battery. Now, the way most manufacturers do this is they'll have it set to where when you're looking at a screen that has no moving images, if you're just looking at a picture, for instance, or if you're scrolling through social media and you stop on something, it has a way to tell when you should switch the refresh rate to only 1 hertz. And the benefit of that is just to have a way better battery life experience. Now, don't get me wrong, the battery life has not been bad on this phone. I'm just saying for future iterations, this should be addressed. And for some reason, this phone always stays at 120, unless you change it to auto select or standard. And by the way, even when you put it on auto select, it never goes below 60, which is really weird. And not only that, but just certain apps for some reason automatically are just 60 hertz, which just pisses me off. And that's why I leave it on high. So for a good example is Spotify. For some reason, if you're on auto select and you go into Spotify and you start scrolling, it's always 60 hertz. And it looks super choppy and it's super obvious, especially when your eyes have gotten used to 120. It's just, you can't go back. So yeah, I never leave it on auto select for that reason alone. And don't get me wrong, the phone is very fluid and it always feels really good at 120, but it's just really weird that the phone never goes below 120 when you have it set to high. So I hope in the future iteration they will fix that. And you might be asking, well, how do you know this? So there's actually a developer setting you can turn on the refresh rate to see what it currently is at. So I'll give you an example of that real quick. So in developer options, there is a show refresh rate button. You can turn that on and then up here you can see it's at 120. And I guess this could be technically just a glitch with this option. Maybe it's technically at 1 hertz right now and it's just not saying that. I'm not sure. And you guys can correct me in the comments below if that is the case. But from my own experience, it's just weird to me that when I come to the home screen right now with no moving images or anything, this technically should be down to 1 hertz, again, to help with battery life. So I really hope this is telling me a lie. I hope it's not running at 120 all times because that is going to eat away at your battery like crazy. So again, I just hope that's something that does get addressed in a future update. Either fix that glitch with the developer option, or if it is telling the truth, make sure it is able to drop down below 120 and below 60 when you're looking at static images. This is kind of a funny glitch right now. I don't think this is going to stay. At least I hope not. So they added a new feature with Android 15 where you can actually split the notification panels, which I really like. I love using it on the inner display. So if you swipe down from the left side, you get your notifications. And if you swipe down from the right side, you get your quick toggles or your tools, kind of like you get on iOS. This is super convenient. I love this. And it looks way better for me personally. Whereas if you leave it on the old school way, the classic way, I should say, which you can do, when you slide down, you get your notifications at the bottom and you get your tools at the top. And I know some people like that cohesiveness of it all in one place. I get that. But the issue is it only leaves enough room for one notification to show at a time. And it just looks a little bit too bloated, in my opinion. So I do like this new look of like separating the tools from the actual notifications. So what's the issue though? What's the glitch? So on the inner display, we still get the same feature of swipe down from the left, you get your notifications. This looks good. But for some reason, when you swipe down and look at your tools, it's only on the one side. I don't know why it's like this. I definitely think they should update this to make it, take up the whole display. I've heard some people say this might be intentional to ease of use, like to reach with one hand, but I don't know, man. I think it just looks ugly. I think that's a glitch, and I think that definitely should be updated. This is a big one, and this is a hardware situation that's not going to be fixed with this device, sadly, and I really hope with the OnePlus Open 2, this will be a feature, wireless charging. So this does not have wireless charging. I do have a MagSafe adapter on here. Trust me, I'm not crazy. I'm not trying to charge this phone like that. It's really just to be used with my pop socket. I know it's not actually a pop socket, but I like the look of this one better. Anyway, so I use it with this. I also have a car charger in my car that you can technically just use as a mounting system that uses MagSafe. So when I get in my car, I just plop it up there even though it doesn't charge. But needless to say, I do really miss not having wireless charging. It's such a convenience. Once you go MagSafe, you can never go back, in my opinion. And even though this thing has super fast charging with wired connection, I can't deny that. It's just a bummer not having wireless charging. So I really hope in the future we will get that with the OnePlus Open 2. And my last gripe, once again, hardware related. It's not going to be fixed here, but hopefully in the next iteration we'll see an update to this. The camera bump. This has been Probably the biggest complaint for most people with the design of this phone is just how thick the phone is with this camera bump. It's absolutely insane. Thankfully, with this little pop socket thing on here, it adds a little bit of thickness to the phone, so it rests very good on a table, so I can type without it wobbling too much. But without that, it wobbles pretty bad, and you touch this all the time. I absolutely hate touching it. I feel so bad because these are beautiful cameras, and I don't like smudges. But it's literally impossible. Even when you're holding the phone normally, your finger does have a place to rest on it, which is good. But most of the time, it's going to slip up and you're just going to fingerprint the hell out of these cameras, and it happens all the time. So I hope in the next iteration, they go back to the drawing board and they change the look of this and hopefully can make it a little thinner. So that's it for my negatives right now. And I know that kind of seemed like a lot, but trust me, when I go into the good of this phone, it just heavily outweighs all the negatives that I have. And most of those negatives, mind you, are software, so they can easily be fixed not only just on the next iteration, but on this phone. So I'm excited for that, and I hope people are excited for that as well. You don't have to upgrade if you don't want. So moving on to the good, the first thing for me that I love about this phone is it comes with some great accessories in this giant-ass box. So there's a really fun unboxing experience that you don't get with other devices in the market these days. And when you're paying, you know, like when this phone was brand new, it was almost $2,000. Now you can get it pretty cheap. I was able to get it for $1,100 on the Black Friday deal, which is awesome. But needless to say, for like $1,800, you want to get an unboxing experience like this. You want to get a giant box that feels heavy, it feels hefty, and it comes with actual accessories. So you get a charging brick in the box, which is awesome. You get the charging cable, and it comes with a case. And I love this case. It feels just like the same texture as the back. It's like that faux leather. It's protective. It's got the right cutouts. It doesn't add much heft to the phone. And this is on a market right now. The folding market has the worst amount of cases available from third-party manufacturers. I think all of you guys can agree to that. So the fact that they give you a free case in the box is absolutely just unheard of. And it's great. I love this case. So yeah, OnePlus is awesome for that, and I really hope that they continue that trend with their next iteration. Next is the build quality. I know I can't really show you it right now with the case on here. I don't want to go through taking it off because there is adhesive strips underneath, but just trust me on this, the build quality is magnificent. This thing feels like a $1,000 plus device, and it absolutely should with how much you're paying with these devices. But it feels hefty, but not overly heavy either. Some folding devices like the Pixel felt very heavy to me. And it actually competes with the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold, which this is one of the lightest devices on the market for folding devices, and it's obviously much smaller, so it should be lighter, but it's actually not. Side by side, this one actually feels a little lighter in certain situations, which is crazy to say. So it feels great. It's got great build quality. It's just everything about it is gorgeous. And even though the camera bump is ginormous, it looks gorgeous. It looks like a Rolex watch for damn sake. I mean, this thing is great. It's an absolutely beautiful design. On the outside, you barely have any bezels. It almost fills up the whole screen. I definitely think this is one of the, if not the best looking foldable device on the market. And this is a year old at this point. So the fact that it still looks this good, got to give them a plus for that. Next is the amazing hinge. This also kind of, fits into the build quality, but the hinge is so nice. It feels solid. It snaps open when you want to use it. It shuts closed when you want to be done with it. It feels durable. It looks nice. I have no issues whatsoever when it comes to the build quality other than just the camera bump. But yeah, the hinge is absolutely godlike. Absolutely love the feel of this phone. The outer display is also the perfect size. It feels like a legitimate smartphone when you're not unfolding it. You can take this out of your pocket in public and no one's gonna look at you like a freak. They're not gonna be like, what the hell is that skinny little candy bar phone in your hand? Why does this look so oblong and weird? You don't get those looks at all, and I love that. It's a genuinely just normal phone on the outside. It's like the OnePlus 12. It runs great, it looks great, and you can type on this and not feel cramped. That's probably the biggest thing for me, is being able to use the keyboard without any issues. So like if you're going to search for something, you get a full-blown keyboard. Like if you put this up next to the Samsung, this is absolutely wild. Like the differences with the keyboard. Like, just, man, look at that. Just look at that. It's so crazy how different the keyboard is. And maybe it doesn't look like that big of a difference on camera. I don't know. It's your eyes versus my eyes, but in person, it's almost like it's double the size, and it feels so much better, more unique. and just more natural to type on with the OnePlus versus the Samsung Z Fold. So yeah, that was definitely my biggest plus with going with this phone, ironically, was I just really wanted to get a phone that had a decent keyboard that I could use on the outer display without having to feel like I had to open the phone to use it at its full functionality. And I know some people are going to argue, well, why get a folding phone if you want to use the outer display so much? My main reason or argument to that is, well, I love the ability to know at any moment I could just whip out this giant inner display and do so much amazing multitasking or watching media, whatever the case may be, on a much larger display whenever I like. And then when I don't need that big display, I have a beautiful outer display that I can use as a regular phone for more just convenience. So personally, I choose form factor and convenience over, just having a great inner display and nothing on the outer display. The haptics, extremely underrated. So I talked about this with my Pixel phone as well. I think the Pixel Fold had amazing haptics on the phone, very underrated. And I know a lot of people don't talk about that stuff, like the vibration motors in phones, like who cares? But this is from somebody that never really runs the phone with the volume on, just because I hate annoying people around me knowing when I get a notification. So I like being able to feel in my pocket when I get a vibration from a new notification. I also love when I'm typing to feel every little vibration on the phone. It adds more complexity to it. It feels more elegant, if that's the right word. And I definitely think that Google perfected it on the Android side versus, and I think iPhone is probably the best on the market for haptics, but Pixel's right behind it, and I think this is third place, but it's really, really close. So vibration motor is super strong. You're gonna feel it in your pocket. You're gonna hear it on your desk, but it's not to the point of it feeling like it's rattling, it's gonna break the phone. And I always felt that way with Samsung devices. I think Samsung devices have the worst haptics on the market. I'm not gonna lie. They always just feel very cheap and they're not very strong. Not the case here. And yeah, typing on the keyboard and everything, using the gestures, you can feel the haptics with everything you do, and I have to commend them for that. The mute slider is also super cool. I love having this little guy. Essentially all it is at any moment you could switch it up to mute the phone or put it into vibrate mode or sound mode. Absolutely love that. I think every manufacturer should do that on Android. I don't know why. Only OnePlus does it, and everybody seems to love it, and I understand why. So yeah, definitely bring that back. Never get rid of that again. The fingerprint scanner is on the side linked with the power button, and it also is below the volume rocker. Thank you, OnePlus, for not following Google's footsteps. I don't know why Google loves to put the power button above the volume. I hate that. Even though I have bigger hands, it's super annoying having to inch my way up the phone every time I want to unlock it. So that's really cool to see. And speaking of the fingerprint scanner, it runs perfect. I have no issues with it. It's super fast. It's very fluid. It's got a nice haptic feedback whenever you use it. Same with the face unlock. I've been very pleasantly surprised at how fast and accurate the face unlock is. And I like that I can use it for activating my bank apps and stuff like that. You don't have to just use the fingerprint. So that is super nice, very convenient. So biometrics on this phone are pretty much perfect. And talking about the inner display from earlier, this is a beautiful, beautiful display. I really don't have any issues with it, and it's probably one of my favorites on the market because of the lack of crease that is visible. So if I really try to show you guys with my lights here, yes, it is possible to see that crease, or if I show it at an angle, you can kind of see it. But I'm telling you right now, guys, putting it up against any other foldable device, it's hard pressed to tell you that you can actually see it. It's extremely difficult. Now, the Samsung though, it's way more obvious. You can really see it on the Samsung. And I'll be honest though, like once you're actually using this device in person, you're looking at it straight on, you're not gonna notice it. It does disappear, and I'm never gonna say it's a huge issue with this display or say this is unusable. But when you're putting it up against the OnePlus, man, they just have perfected that crease. It looks great. It's very, I don't know, man. It's very hidden. I really would be hard pressed to show this to somebody and immediately they go, wow, that crease is terrible. I would never say that, and I don't think anybody ever would in their right mind. So yeah, the crease is awesome and the screen is gorgeous, but obviously it's still a folding phone, so the screen is still plastic. It's not going to be as durable as your glass displays. Kind of a bummer there. It's fingerprint magnet through and through. It is what it is. But if you're like me and you've gotten used to folding devices, you get used to it pretty quickly. And it really isn't that big of a deal as long as you kind of baby it whenever you do have it fully open. Also, another thing that I think is kind of understated when it comes to OnePlus devices is the brightness. So the brightness is insane on this phone. I'm going to put it at full brightness here. My camera probably, yeah, is not going to pick that up. It just washes it out. It's such a bright display. It's absolutely visible in full sunlight conditions, no problem. And it really doesn't get that hot either. It does get warmer in the hand than the Z Fold. I will say Samsung is just the absolute leader in having cooler running phones, but it's never gotten hot enough to where it overheats or restarts or it gets sluggish. I've never had that problem. It does get warm in the hand, but not to the point of being uncomfortable. And not only that, but it also gets extremely dim. So you can literally can't even see that. It's so dim. And I love this. So when I'm laying next to my wife in bed and she's trying to sleep, I'm not waking her up in the middle of the night. And yeah, the dimness is awesome. But I will say, man, I literally can't even see this to turn the brightness back up. Oh my gosh. Let's see, can I reach it? There we go. So one thing I should say though with the dimness is that I did have to turn on a setting that is not on by default in order to get the dimness as dim as you just saw. Because if I'm being honest, out of the box, it is not that dim, and I actually was kind of annoyed with it. So you have to go into the settings, and you got to go into the display settings under display and brightness, and you have to specifically go into dark mode settings. And from here, there's a little switch that says reduce contrast in low light conditions. You enable that, and boom, it just automatically makes the dimness probably about 80% dimmer. It's a huge difference. So highly recommend leaving that on, and thankfully it doesn't affect the rest of the phone. It doesn't make, if you have it at full brightness, it's not going to make it dimmer than normal. It's just for when you have the screen extremely dim in dark situations. It's going to make it that much more dimmer to not, burn your corneas. So that is really nice to see. I love that they added that. I just wish it was on by default. Just kind of something weird that I think should be on. And next is probably the Android 15 features. This just rolled out with the Android 15 update, and I absolutely love it. I think it looks great. It's very fluid. Battery life has actually even been better since I updated. So I'll give you guys an example here. So we are running Android 15, and yeah, I have no issues with the new update. I think the biggest thing that is probably going to be the most obvious for people is the animations. So it just feels more cohesive. It feels more complete. It doesn't feel like a beta anymore. I always felt like the animations for any type of device, I think Samsung has pretty good animations, but most phone manufacturers for Android just doesn't seem to get animations correctly when it comes to their software. And I gotta hand it to OnePlus doing an excellent job with Android 15. And they're very fluid, they're very fast animations. I don't have any issues or gripes with them. I think it loads great and it looks great. And I just absolutely love that they don't really cut off anymore. So in the past, if you opened up an app and you went back to the home screen really fast, it would kind of be choppy or cut it off. If I can do this fast enough, there you go. You can see they added like extra frames in there to make it look cohesive and more elegant. I hate using that word, but it's the best way to describe it. It just feels and looks so much better than it used to. They also added this new live notifications thing, which is literally just ripping off the iPhone with their dynamic island. So if I'm in Spotify, for instance, and I start playing a song, you'll notice that we have like a floating pill up here, just like we have on the iPhone. I'm gonna turn this down so I don't get copyright striked. If we click on it, you get more access to your music right from the get-go, which is super nice. You can skip song, play, pause, choose your different options for your playlists. It's very unique. Well, I shouldn't say unique. It's straight from the iPhone, but it's nice. I do like it. I'm going to keep it enabled. The only downside I can see right now is it doesn't work for many apps. It only pretty much works for timers, alarms, and your music for Spotify. I don't believe it works with like Google, or not Google, what is it? YouTube music. It does not work with this, which is a bummer. So hopefully with updates that will come and it will get better. So yeah. Also on the inner display, it's kind of useless because on the outer display, it makes so much more sense because it actually is around the camera like it would be on the iPhone. But for some reason on the inner display, it's still in the middle, but the camera's over here. So I don't know if they'll change that with a future update. Maybe they'll put it over the camera, which would make more sense to me. I don't know. But it's still kind of unique, kind of cool. I like being able to access my music and stuff without having to go into the app or use a widget, I suppose. So that is pretty cool. And probably the last big thing they changed with Android 15 coming to the OnePlus is they added these new AI editing features. So if you're looking at a picture, you can go right into the AI editing suite. If from here, you can do AI Digital Boost, AI Eraser, unblur, and reflection eraser. Pretty self-explanatory. I'm not going to go through all these on camera, but basically just like on the Samsung or on the Google Pixel, they have these same kind of features with these AI tools that edit your photo, sends it to the cloud, sends it back to your phone, and it works pretty well. I don't really have any issues with it. It just kind of takes a little bit longer than I would like to load some of these, but they get the job done. AI eraser is pretty self-explanatory. You just kind of circle an area. I can give you guys a quick demo of this. Let's get this crap out of the way. So let's say I want to get rid of this like handle up here, and I draw a circle around it, and then it should automatically erase it. There we go. Cool little effect. I like that little transition. And there you go. So it doesn't do a perfect job. I will say I think Samsung honestly has the best on the market for the AI eraser stuff, and then Google is like right behind it. But this is pretty decent. I think you could probably upload this and not have people questioning it, but it's just, yeah, it's fun little dumb features that most people are probably not going to use, but they are there if you want them now. So that is cool. Next is got to be the speakers. I would show you an example, but my microphone is just not going to do it justice. I'm just being honest here, and just take my word for it. The speaker system on this phone is probably the best I've ever heard in my life. just going flat out there. I'm being honest. The speaker system is amazing on this phone. Now, it does show that there's 4 speaker holes. So we have 2 up top and you have 2 on the bottom, but it's just for aesthetics. The left one down here is not a speaker. I'm assuming that's just a microphone. I don't know why they did this, but yeah, it's only here and then 2 on top. So I will say, watching content in portrait mode with the phone open, not that great of a surround sound system. You're not going to hear from both channels very easily. However, if you rotate the phone, it sounds beautiful. It sounds perfect for like a surround sound feel or just, left and right channels. And then of course, if you have the phone shut, you do hear more of a surround sound system, and especially if you're watching it landscape. So that being said though, it gets super loud, way louder than the Z Fold, and at peak loudness, it does not distort. It does not crackle. It does not sound tinny. The bass response is actually really, really well done. It probably has something to do with the built-in Dolby Atmos that they have integrated with the phone, and it works amazingly. So yeah, speaker system built into the phone is insanely good. Next, performance. This one's pretty self-explanatory. The phone is just buttery smooth. I literally have no complaints when it comes to the performance of this phone. It runs great. The RAM management is insane. It's way better than it was on any other phone on the market. 10 times better than Google's. That was one of my biggest issues with the Pixel, is for some reason I only felt like only 3 apps would stay loaded. And then as soon as you go over 3 apps, you would have to reset the app from the beginning every time you open it. I swear with this phone, it remembers where you last were 3 days later. Like I can go to an app I haven't opened in 3 days, click on it, and immediately I'm back where I was. And you'd think that'd be draining battery like crazy because you have all these apps running in the background, but it really doesn't. I've been absolutely astonished by that. So yeah, the performance is buttery smooth. I have no complaints, no crashes, no glitches. I haven't had to restart the phone because of freeze up or anything. So yeah, performance is perfect on the OnePlus Open. And kind of speaking of battery life a little bit, I don't really have the data to prove to you guys that my battery life has been good because it reset everything when the new update came out for Android 15. So like if I went to the last 7 days, for instance, it only shows 2 days. So kind of a bummer. But even just today, like right now, last 24 hours, I have about 11 hours left of battery. I've had the screen on time for about 3 hours today, and I'm still at 60%. That's pretty damn good. So you think about that. That's if I did 6 hours of screen on time, I would still have 10% battery life. So you can do pretty good with this phone. I think I've seen some people get up to 8 hours of on-screen time without issues. Now, that might depend on your usage. It could be that they're not using many apps running in the background. They're not using the full 120 hertz all the time like I do. There's so many things you can help to keep the battery lasting longer with this phone, which is really cool to see. The optimizations are just insanely good. So yeah, battery life is not a complaint whatsoever with the OnePlus. It's honestly one of the best I've ever experienced on a folding device in 2024. So the multitasking on this device is also incredibly good. We have the taskbar like we got on the Z Fold and on the Google. I love the taskbar. So it's going to have your 4 main icons always here, and then it gives you 3 previous apps to go back and forth with. So you can just kind of switch between them on the fly really easily. No issues there. It's super fluid. But if you wanted to multitask, so let's say we got the settings open, but we wanted to have YouTube, drag and drop it up there. Now you got 2 apps side by side. Very cool. Now, let's say you wanted to have 3 apps open. So let's say we wanted to have Twitter open. We're going to put it down there. And now, as you can see, this is super unique to OnePlus, and I love this. So I don't know what they exactly call this. There is a name for it. They have like the full screen apps, I guess. But essentially, you're using the screen, almost 90% of the display for one app. But then you want to jump up here to your double apps. You just click in that area. And you can switch back and forth. You can actually expand all of these, which is insane. So we have right now that one expanded. Let's expand YouTube as well. And then now we have an expanded version of my settings, YouTube, and Twitter. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. I don't think you can do 4. Let me see. Yeah, you can only do 3, but still, 3 is more than enough. I don't know any crazy person who want to do 4 in a row. But yeah, you can do that. You can set these all up from like, you can switch apps, you can do full screen. To get out of there, you can go right back to where you were with that, recent apps area. Like, this is just the coolest multitasking system I've ever witnessed on a phone. I absolutely love the multitasking on the OnePlus. It's super fluid as well. I've never had any crashes or issues where I felt like it was lagging with 3 apps running at once at full screen like that. So yeah, then you got floating windows like I showed before. So if you want to use a floating window, you just, let's see, settings. I guess in the inner display, they don't have that feature. That's really interesting. I never knew that. Oh, there we go. Maybe just the settings, you can't do a floating window for some reason. But yeah, so you have this open. You can make it a little bit bigger. You can do gestures now. I'm going to keep it on buttons because I don't like the gestures. So you can have it floating around. You can change the size of it if you want. You can delete it. You can make it full screen. Floating windows are great. You also have a sidebar you can turn on, just like you got on Samsung. I don't. But yeah, I mean, multitasking is absolutely insane on this phone. I believe even on the front display now. So if we were to open up an app here, and we want to go into split screen mode, we can choose another one. Let's do YouTube. As you can see, YouTube is full screen, and then you can just click up here, and we go into our photos. And you can do it side by side. You can, again, have it where you have the bottom app take up pretty much the entire screen. You can switch between them on the fly, and it's very fluid. It takes a little bit of getting used to. I prefer just having it split down the middle like I've always done when it comes to multitasking. But to be honest, if you have a folding phone, you're kind of insane to do multitasking on the front display. You might as well just open it up at that point. But it's cool that they added that. They have all these features. Multitasking is probably the best, again, I've ever seen on a folding device. OnePlus is just knocking it out of the park, and I can't wait to see what they do with the OnePlus 2. So the last part of my pluses and my favorite features of this phone is the cameras. I can't really show you live here, the quality of the cameras. I will put some picture quality samples after this section so you guys have a little bit of an idea. But the camera system on this phone, even though it's ginormous, it's great. It's really damn good. It is so much better than the Z Fold 6. I was actually really disappointed with these cameras, I'm not gonna lie. For how much these phones are, these cameras should be really good. And yeah, the OnePlus Open is probably one of the best on the market. Putting it, side by side with Pixel phone cameras, it's hard to say. Some people would argue this is a better camera system than the Pixel 9 Pro Fold 2 got, but I don't know. I like some pictures with the Pixel over this. I like this one sometimes. The one thing I will say is you might think that they over sharpen some of the images with this one just a little bit, and I will agree with that. They are a little bit over sharpened sometimes. However, the editing suite built into the picture phone is super nice, super easy, super fluid, and you're able to edit the colors and everything just the way you like it. And I think pictures come out looking really, really, really good. I mean, you can look at the detail here, like in my beard. It's a very, very good picture. And this was actually taken with the rear camera because with the folding phone, you can open it up and use this as a viewfinder. When you take selfies, it's super nice. But even the front-facing camera is really good. So yeah, I have no gripes when it comes to the cameras. I actually think they're some of the best on the folding phone market, and you're not going to be disappointed. And again, I'm just super excited to see what OnePlus does with the cameras on the OnePlus Open 2. I cannot wait to see what they're going to do with that. So, all that out of the way, this has been my video talking about my favorite folding device on the market, and it's still the OnePlus Open. Even though I'm a new customer, this has only been a couple weeks with this phone, I just am still in love with it. I'm still like in the honeymoon phase, and I can't gush more about it. It has its quirks, it has its issues, but 90% of them can be fixed with updates. I'm not worried about that. And the other ones that are hardware related, I think will be fixed with the next iteration that I definitely will be upgrading to. I'll be making videos on it and all that stuff as well. If you have any questions about this phone, or maybe the Z Fold or the Pixel when I had that, if you have any questions about anything that I did not cover in this video, let me know in the comment section below. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. And with that, make sure to leave a like, share, support as always. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Hopefully see you in the next one. Peace out, everybody.